Good evening everyone and welcome back to another Saturday night live stream. And as you can tell from the title of this video, we're going to be converting some Ultramarine Tyranid Hunters. Now a few of you may remember that there were some, I don't know if they're still there, I think they are, some Tyranid Hunter miniatures, and basically what I'm going to try to do in this video is essentially kind of make a Primaris version of them. Mainly because Primaris have been around kind of long enough to have had that influence from older Tyrannic war veterans that are still within the Ultramarines chapter to have been taught their skills and their abilities to become their own kind of cadre of Tyranid Hunters. So the basis of the conversion I'll be using are these images here. Now these are just some kind of straightforward artwork from various sources about the Tyrannic war veterans. We've got this one here, and then we've actually got the miniatures themselves. Now these are the old kind of firstborn Tyrannic war veterans. And I really like these miniatures. I really liked them when they came out, but they were resin, and now, well, they were metal, and now they're resin. So it's actually, it's going to be interesting trying to recreate this in a modern plastic and Primaris form. So, as always with these live streams, this is kind of like a Q&A session. It's also where you guys can ask me questions about what I'm working on. So if you want me to elaborate a technique, then please ask me, and we can get started with the conversion. So, we take a quick look at the chat just to see what you guys are saying. So, my dad, your dad, super chatted and said, I haven't paid my taxes in 30 years, so thank you for the super chat, and it's probably, you should probably not say that publicly. That might not be great. So let's get started with this. Okay, so the first things that I did, now I did this earlier because I wasn't sure how long it would take me to get. I've actually kind of managed to get the technique down. And you can see here that we have a Primaris torso, and I've already removed the Aquila there. So let's just kind of skip to the little video for you guys, just so you can see what I was doing here. And I've actually made sure that the audio is working this time, because last time I didn't. But I'm just using a knife here. I'm just taking that front chest plate, and I'm just very carefully removing that the Aquila. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I think it gives us a lot more space on the model that we can use for the conversion. It also looks pretty good when you paint it. It gives it more of like a kind of like a slab-like armor design, and it just works really well. I really like how it looks on the Reavers, and I think it works well on the rest of your intercessors, and it doesn't take too long. It took me maybe about 2 minutes to do this normally. I basically mainly use some larger cuts to remove these items, and then shaved it down with this kind of this motion that you can see here. So anyway, let's go back to the miniature that we have in front of us now. So what we want to do first is just to get the main body assembled. That's going to be the first task, because it's going to be the basis of the conversion. We want to make sure that everything that we have is based around the pose. We want to make sure that everything, like the legs and everything like that, is going to stick and not get in the way. So we're going to start off with that first. Now the glue I'm using here is, I've mentioned it in my description, because everyone always asks me what glue I'm using, and I always forget to put it in the description, but there's a link in there that takes your time, as then it's an affiliates link as well, but I mean, if you just click it, then that's fine. It's basically plastic magic, and it comes with this really nice little brush that you can see here, and it's just basically a really helpful glue that I use on my models, mainly because it's liquid. It has the brush that gives me a lot of focus. It's quite fluid as well. It's not like a thick liquid. So we've got the main structure of the torso there. Let's just glue the legs on as well. Now all these components have been pre-cut from the sprue, and I've also removed any mold lines as well, just so that you guys aren't literally watching me remove parts from a sprue, which can, at least for me, is the most boring part of any assembly. Okay, so that's fairly quick. Let's just leave that to dry. Let's have a quick look at. So yes, I should have mentioned that this is a standard intercessor that we're using here. We'll be using some parts from other kits, but I'll mention those as we go along. So this is basically just the multi-part intercessor kit, and most of the components I'm using are from that, but I will mention the ones that are from other kits. Okay, have you considered doing a conversion on vehicles? Maybe Chaosifying Lemon Russ or something. Yeah, so I was thinking of doing some modern armor conversions for maybe Imperial Guard vehicles, so making them look a little bit more like contemporary tanks and the kind of equipment they use, the reactive armor, things like that. I think it'd be quite interesting to do something like that, something inspired along that. Cyberdagger, yes. So I think were you the one who left the comment about the Tyranid War veterans? I think if it was you, I can't remember the name, but yeah, I was actually going to mention this idea actually came from a comment on the Word Bearers video, I think it was. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I have all the components that I need to hand, and so we're going to start using it. So we've got the torso, we've got the legs, and what we're going to be doing here now is before we start assembling these front plates, and this is the great thing about this kit, because it comes with these separate little leg sections here. And the perfect thing about these is we can start making alterations, we can start adding bits to them, we can start cutting things away, and that basically just gives us a little bit more, it allows us to do it a little bit more easily because these components are separate. Now, one of the things that I wanted to do, I wanted to essentially recreate here is if you look on these pictures again, you can see that we have some degree of damage to these Space Marines. They have damaged scars on their face, they have mechanical parts, and I wanted to recreate the fact that these guys, the armor that they're wearing is going to be scarred and damaged. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a dry fit here. We've got the leg just section there, and then I've got a shoulder pad that I'm going to be applying. Actually, let's swap the side that I'm going to do. I'm going to do it on the left side of the body instead. So we're going to use this left shoulder pad. Now this shoulder pad here is, now I actually can't remember which kit this is from. This is an old Ultramarine shoulder pad. It's just it's from an older kit. You can see how like lighter the grey is. So it's from an old kind of firstborn Marines kit. I can't remember which one it is, but anyway, this, you can pretty much use any Ultramarine symbols from the Ultramarine upgrade sprue. It doesn't really matter with this one here. So big thank you to Marcus Rawcliffus. You have become a member of my channel. I think you were the first one to do so. So big thank you to you. You should have access to all those fun little emojis that I added in. So make sure you use those if you are in the chat, of course. So what do you think of my Sororitas cavalry idea? What kits come to mind? Oh yeah, so that, I mean, I really like that idea. So just mention that it's basically on the Discord. If you aren't on the Discord channel, then check that out. Benjamin left a really nice suggestion for an Adeptus Sororitas kind of cavalry. Let's see if I can get this onto the stream very quickly. Bear with me. Image slideshow. Add an image. Let's just add this in. Okay, so let's just transition through these. Is it added? There we go. So this is the image that was added to my YouTube suggestions channel on Discord, and it's basically an Adeptus Sororitas mounted cavalry. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but this is basically, I think it's a really cool idea. It makes some pretty interesting ideas, and to be honest, looking at this, I'd probably go for the new Scutari kit that got released on with the cavalry. I think that would work really nicely as the basis, and probably take some of the components from the regular Sisters of Battle. I probably would need to make some adjustments to the leg poses, things like that, but yeah, I think I could get that working. I'm gonna take that idea from it, and I'm gonna work on it in the background. So thank you for that suggestion. It will definitely be appearing on the channel at some point, hopefully. Sabidai, yeah, big Joan of Arc vibes, very much so, especially the fleur-de-lis symbol that the Sisters of Battle have. I did see another. Yes, Joe Thomas, I do have a Discord server. The link is in the description. I've made sure it's in there, so feel free to join. We've just hit 500 members. Everyone's really cool in there. There's got some really great ideas that get suggested. It's great for advice, things like that, so definitely check that out. Josh Taylor, thank you for the super chat. And also thank you to Pope Julianus for becoming a recruit of the channel. Thank you very much. Right, anyway, back to this. I'm getting really sidetracked. Hopefully we can get this done. So, anyway, where is that component that I was using earlier on? I did have it somewhere and it's gone missing. I was basically doing a test. Here we go. So what I wanted to do is wanted to create the appearance of damaged armor, but I wanted to have the damage caused by like the acid that Tyranids use. And you can see we've got this kind of effect here that I've used. Now this is a few different techniques I'm using kind of in conjunction here to create this battle damage. This is what I'm going to be doing on this leg here. Now I'm going to be having the damage on this right side of the body, and I'm going to be having this on quite a few different areas. So I'm going to use it on this leg first. Now the first thing that I do was I take a pin vise, and I basically just start by drilling some small holes into the surface. Very shallow, we don't want to go all the way through. You can see here it's a very, very shallow dent that I've got there. And then I'm going to do another one a little bit next to it and make it a little bit deeper than the last one. Like so, and then I'm going to try and join them up as best as I can with another hole. There we go. So there we go. So you can see we've got a little bit of damage there, but at the moment it kind of just looks like a Nurgle Plague Marine. It doesn't quite look like it's an actual, like an acid burn or anything like that. So what we need to do is we need to soften it out. We need to give the actual armor a little bit of kind of distortion. So I'm going to be using some glue here. I'm just going to be applying the glue over the top. The great thing about using glue for this is glue is actually a solvent, so what it will do is actually start to melt the plastic, which is exactly what we want, so it works really well for this. So if we just leave that for a second. I'm just going to keep that, so just leave that to one piece. We want it basically to soften. We don't want to let it dry, we just want to let it, give it a chance to soften up the plastic. And then when it has done that, I'm going to bring in this pin vise again, and I'm just going to press into the areas rather than applying like a full kind of actual screwing motion. I will instead just be pressing in just to create a dent, and on the softer plastic you should find that this actually starts to distort and create almost like an acid burn effect. So I don't know how well the camera's picking up. Let's make sure the autofocus is right for this. So let's just get this a little bit closer to. There we go. You can just about see it there. So it's not quite the same as a normal kind of hole or battle damage. It's softer, so it looks like the armor's been damaged by acid corrosion. So I'll be using this across the armor. So this is the first section, and the great thing about doing it on the leg here is that I can just do this separately from the rest of the armor. I'm also going to apply it to this part here. Now, I don't know if anyone else noticed this, but when I was using the older kind of plastic kits, the plastic always seemed a little bit different, like it was always paler. I mean, this component, I've probably had it in my bits box for about maybe 10 years, maybe. And it's like considerably lighter. I don't know if it's just faded over time or if the plastic that they used back then was lighter. So yeah, we're just going to apply some of this over here across the shoulder, and you can see that I'm keeping this theme across the right side of the body. I want it to look like this Marine got hit by a particular nasty Tyranid, and so his armor's been affected accordingly. So let's apply that glue over the top here, and hopefully this older plastic will work the same. I'll just adjust the focus there, guys. I prefer to work in this kind of area here. There we go. As a Tyranid player looking forward to pick up the Space Marine part of the Indomitus, I'm not sure how you feel about it. Well, if you're a Tyranid player, then you probably already have lots of Tyranid components already that you can use, which we'll see in a little bit, as trophies and other items. So I'm kind of just messing around with this. I'm seeing what kind of effects I can get. So I'm using, because the plastic is softer, we can very kind of carefully pull it out with a knife like this, and we don't need to apply hardly any pressure at all. And it actually starts to give a more of a corroded effect to the surface, which is what we're looking to do. And this is probably the most intensive part of this entire conversion. The rest of the conversion is mostly just kit bashing. There's a few items where we're going to be adding some chains later on, but for the most part it's like here. It's just adding these sections. Now, what we want to avoid is these sharper sections here. We want everything to be soft. So whenever you get like a sharp cut, if you drill a hole that's too deep or too defined, then you can just apply a little bit of the glue over the top, and it'll help to add to that corroded, damaged effect. So I think that'll do for the legs. So let's get these leg plates on, and then we can start to build up our Space Marine. So David Moffat, or Moffat, yes. Thank you for joining me. This will be on later on. So anyone, if you have to dip out in the stream at any point, then don't worry. The video always goes on to YouTube afterwards, so you can kind of rewatch it. Okay, so we've got the armor there, and we've got the shoulder pads. So you can see how I'm kind of keeping that acidic burn theme going along the model. Let's add a little bit to this torso, this top of this thigh here. I always find that with this kind of battle damage, you need to almost tell a story with how you position things. If you just apply random battle damage, it doesn't look correct. It's got to look like you've actually thought about how you want things to look and how the damage would occur and what could cause the damage to occur. So if I just apply a little bit there, soften those up again. Colin Betrayer, would you consider turning the footage from the live stream into a more condensed video? Yeah, so this is one of the things I was considering really, because part of the live streams that I was doing, it gives me the opportunity to obviously talk to you guys, but with the expense of that is a more kind of concise video. Normally this kind of conversion probably be around about five minutes for a conversion. But if I do it on a live stream, it obviously takes an hour because you're seeing all the steps and you're not seeing that the in between steps either. But yeah, I probably will make these a little bit more condensed in the future. Will you ever convert Dark Angels? I did have a Raven Wing upgrade sprue arrive the other day, so maybe wait until Indomitus is released and we'll see what comes out. Okay, so we've got the armor set up there, and we're going to look at start adding some weapons now. Should we add weapons now, or yeah, let's add the weapons now. So the weapon I'm going to be adding first of all is this combat blade wielding arm, and this is from a Reaver kit. Now the reason why I wanted to use this is because I always feel that if you were a Tyranid veteran, you will want to have something like this handy. You want to rely on the smaller combat knives that the actual the intercessors come with. So this kind of makes sense. It also helps us to add a slightly different pose to the model as well. So I'm going to just glue this on here to the arm. And the great thing about these Reaver arms is, especially the left arms, because the left arms take the shoulder pads, they're not too dissimilar from the right arms. They don't look too bad at all. So I'm just going to hold this arm fairly relaxed. And then, obviously, because we're using a knife in this arm, we're going to need to use a right arm, which doesn't have the actual, isn't carrying a full bolter. There's a couple of these that you can use instead. You don't have to use this particular one. We're going to be applying that to about there. Now, the reason why we want to get this kind of structured down first is because this is going to be where we need to make sure that we're not blocking off the areas in the model, so we can't add things like pouches and extra components. We need to keep things pretty much, we need to allow the structure of the model to be built first before we start adding extra bits to it. So let's go for the auto bolt rifle attachment. I imagine if you were hunting Tyranids, you'd probably want to have as big a magazine as possible. You wouldn't want to worry about necessarily accuracy. I did actually forget to drill out the barrel here, so I do apologize. I drilled out the side of it, but not the front, so I'll have to do that later. Okay, so we have the basic pose now. We have the actual torso and the two arms. We're going to leave off the head for now, and we're also going to leave off the power pack for now. So we want to start adding some. We've already got a little bit with the damage on the leg and with damage on the thigh there and the shoulder pad. But what we want to should we add that shoulder pad now? Yes, let's go for that. Let's just add that. We've already added the extra damage to it, so I can go ahead. And straight away we have our chapter iconography already. Okay. So let's start thinking about adding some equipment. Now, these guys being veterans, I would fully imagine them to have lots of equipment available to them. They want to be have plenty of ammunition. They want to have various equipment that allows them to track and maybe even counteract some of the weapons that the Tyranids use. So we're going to start adding those in a second, but let's have a quick look with the comments. So we have Marcus Rawcliffus. So having gone through that myself, don't force yourself into hobby. Oh, you're actually responding to someone else that you're talking to me. Maybe a good idea to give him an empty pistol holster. Incestus come with those. You already read my mind. I actually already have one right here. That's going to go on there. So it's going to be one of the main things that needs to go on there. And another thing that we need to do is to actually give him a holster for his knife. Now this particular component is from the Mark IV Space Marine kit. Now this is actually kind of like almost like a clasp that goes in the blade. So this is the blade itself and obviously the blade handle. And this is essentially where I'd imagine that would hold this blade in place. So first of all, let's cut away the blade because he's already got the blade in his hand and we just need to have these straps intact. So if I use this knife here, I'm just going to press down there. You could use clippers for this, but for something that's you want a very precise cut on, then the knife is usually pretty good. And as long as it's pretty thin, the knife should cut through nicely. So this gives us this empty kind of the strap that the knife can be attached to. Just trim those top and bottom. Something about the left leg looks a bit off in my opinion. This leg, what do you think looks off about it? Is that the armor or is it the pose? So we need to figure out a way that this knife would have been drawn because we need to make sure that this makes sense. If he's holding it in his left hand, and chances are he's probably going to be using it in his left hand instead of his right hand, especially if he's always got the bolt pistol. So we want to put the pistol on this side, I suppose, maybe so he can do like a cross draw. So he can lean across his waist, which means that his knife would have to go on the other side. So we need to kind of get it into that gap there. So let's bring in the tweezers because it's quite a fine area to get that in. So let's put a bit of glue on the area that we want to add. Or should we add it to the leg? Is that a bit much if we add it to the leg? Yeah, it is a bit much. Let's just add it to... The thigh would have been okay, but I think we haven't really left ourselves much room there. So let's go with this, and then we're going to just drop that into there. I'm just going to put the straps facing down. If we angle this slightly, we can kind of get a better angle. So you can imagine the actual blade going into there as well. Ah, you're saying that the lower part doesn't... Yeah, I actually don't think it's fit properly, has it? Yeah, look, it's not even glued on. Good spot. I'm actually right in front of the model here, and you guys actually managed to notice that the fit wasn't right. Is that clipped in? There is like... There we go. That's better. It's clipped in now. Is this leg in the joint properly? Yep, so that's definitely in the place in this little left section. Okay, cool. Right, so let's add on this this holster as well. Again, everything's already been pre-cleaned just to make this a little bit quicker. We don't need to worry too much about removing any of the mold lines. But obviously, if you're following along, then you will need to. Don't just clip things off and glue them straight to the model. So we've got that slightly attached to the belt, and then down the leg as well. There we go. You think the bolter and the bolt pistol looks too much? I mean, no. I mean, to be fair, I was thinking about removing the bolter, but I kind of wanted these guys to be I was going to use one of the Reaver pistol arms, but I kind of wanted this guy to be very heavily armed. I wanted him to be ready for close combat, ready for long range engagements, things like that. Pope Julianus, do you have any plans on making a video on the Black Dragons? Yeah, it's one of those chapters that has always kind of been in the back of my mind that I wanted to tackle at some point. But the only thing that I could ever really... The only real theme that I could think about was obviously those bony protrusions, the ones that from their elbows. And sometimes it's very difficult to just have that single theme. You need a couple of angles for a model, or at least for a conversion video. So one of the problems that I've had is kind of coming up with a way that would keep them within the lore that they already have and make sense. So I wanted to think of something. One of the things I was toying with was maybe making them a little bit almost vampiric looking, so kind of like how the older vampire counts models, that kind of armor. That was one of the things I was looking at. So it kind of fits in with the dragon theme as well, how the vampires have the blood dragons, and it's almost kind of, it's already established that that kind of vampirism style thing is already in place with the blood angels. So that's probably where I would go with that if I can't think of anything else. But yeah, they're still on my mind, and I do want to cover them at some point, but I want to do them justice, so I want to make sure I've got a good idea for them. So you think the left wrist needs rotating a bit so that the knife is backwards? Yeah, I think it would make more sense that way. But I don't really want to make a cut to the arm. How does this arm normally... I'm wondering if this arm normally kind of posed this way. Let's grab some of the Reaver Arms. Let's have a look. So we've got some different... You know, I probably should have gone for that arm. That arm would have been much better. I wish I'd seen this one earlier. It still has the backwards grip, but it also has the little computer on the arm as well. Kind of gives him more of a sergeant vibe or more of a veteran vibe. So that was held against the body. Yeah, that looks better. That's... Oh no. Let's disassemble this. Yes, the glue is still just about soft enough. Now this is actually one of the things about plastic magic that you don't often see, is that it stays fairly soft for quite a while. It takes a couple of hours for it to like fully cure and fully harden. And so you can do things like this. If you're in the middle of a conversion and you're not happy with something, you can just kind of rip it off, clean up the contact point, and then kind of fix it again. Whereas other glues, I found that they cure very, very quickly, which means that doing stuff like that is almost impossible without damaging the component. But this stays fairly soft, so as long as you want to make that change within the same kind of conversion session, it's just another pro about them. But yeah, it's quite helpful. This component is actually pretty clean of mold lines, so let's just go ahead with this one. So again, like I said, you need to just make sure you clean up these contact points, otherwise the glue won't sit on them properly. It usually just involves filing away a little bit of the glue. There we go. I think this arm should fit a little bit better. I think that's better. I think that pose is much better than the other one. I think the other one was maybe meant to be a bit more horizontal, the pose was. I think that looks better than the last one. Yeah, much better. There we go. So just need to clean up the inside of this as well. Older plastic definitely feels strange compared to newer stuff. It's like it's softer. So like I said, I don't know if it's just maybe the plastic's got changed over time or whether or not it's actually a different formulation. Okay, so we're back where we started now. Okay, so let's carry on with this. Oh, so we've got the holster for the blade. We've got the holster for the pistol. Let's add some equipment to this chest area. So this is why I wanted to kind of free up the area. Now I actually want your guys' opinion on something, because I really like the belt, this kind of grenade launcher attachment that goes on here, and I really like how it kind of looks like a bandolier as opposed to, I think that would work quite well across the chest, but I don't know if it's a little bit too much. So what do you guys think? Should we go with the bandolier? There's a little bit of delay on this anyway, so if you can't answer straight away, we're just going to wait there for a second. I'm actually going to cut this off first because I've got a few of these components spare, and we can go ahead with this. So let's just attach this like so, and okay, actually I think that works quite well. Now let's just see it on the model. It looks better than I thought it would do. And also this section here actually bends around quite nicely down to the belt. So if I bend this little bit of plastic up into the armpits, then that'll be hidden. So let's go for that. Let's just bend this round. Oh, I've done a little bit too hasty about that there. Clean up these sections here first, and then we can add in. Yeah. So we really need to give across the kind of veteran vibe for this model, which is why I wanted to go all out with the equipment. I think these guys need to have plenty of gear to be able to take on the Tyranids that they're supposed to be fighting. Plus it reminds me of my Void Science conversion, and that's by far my most favourite conversion that I've ever done. Just all those pouches on the chest. So I think that will be covered up by a shoulder pad once I've added it on, actually. So we can... Yeah, it's pretty much hidden, so we can get away with that. You could add a claw. Yeah, you could add a Tyranid claw to the strap. That'd be pretty cool, actually. Unfortunately, I don't actually have that many Tyranid components. Let's just glue that bit down just to have it stop it from popping up. I think I did have some Gaunt components somewhere, but I have no idea where they've gone. They're just probably hiding in a random bits box somewhere. This leg hasn't glued on properly. So I do have a few components that I'm going to be using from Tyranid kits, so don't worry, we will definitely have some... This is the only trouble. Sometimes if you need to kind of force a component into place, the glue doesn't dry very quickly, so you need to coax it sometimes. Okay, so I think that should hold onto place now. Okay. Make the shoulder pad look like it was hit by some nasty poison. This shoulder pad, so I'm actually going to go with a trophy on this particular shoulder pad. So I think we're okay. Hang on, can we add in a little bit more pouches to the front there? We can squeeze that pouch in. No, I feel like if I add any pouches here, then that's going to kind of ruin the effect of the pistol, because if the pistol was there, the handle would be there, so we can't actually put any more pouches in the front there. So let's leave that for the time being. Let's go over to this shoulder pad here. Now this shoulder pad, I was actually going to add on a Tyranid trophy. And I've actually got this component here. Now this is from the Tyranid Warrior set, and it's kind of like a piece of Carapace. I think it's like an extra piece that you can add to the shoulders just to kind of bulk out one of them. So I'm going to be using this as a little bit of kind of a trophy to add onto the shoulder pad. And I think I'm going to go with trimming it down and using this section here. This is the most kind of detailed part of the component, so we need to have something that looks identifiably tyrannidy, whatever the phrase is. So I'm going to trim this down. It's a little bit too big for what we need it for. I'm just going to trim it down a little bit bigger than we actually need it. And then I'm actually going to start making some cuts here to look like this was forcibly removed from a Tyranid. We're just going to do some cuts with the clippers first, just to cover some of the biggest ones, and then I'm going to bring in the knife, and we're going to smooth these out. At the moment they're looking too sharp, so we need to have some smoother cuts. And because this is a bit of a broken carapace, then it's fine. It doesn't really matter if it's not. It doesn't make sense biologically, I suppose. And besides, a lot of these kind of things you can sort out once you actually come to paint them as well, so that helps too. Okay, I've got a file. Let's file this down a little bit. Any suggestions on kit bashing a scout into a marine from the original Doom game? Well, first of all, I probably wouldn't use a scout. I'd probably use Palanite Enforcers. I think they're pretty, especially the helmets. You can probably get away with doing something like a fairly close approximation to Doom Marine with those guys. Tyranids make biological sense. No, I suppose not. I think it's always, I always do my best to maintain some sort of suspension of disbelief in my conversions. Is like things. I mean, if you look at my Talon Desert Raider conversion, a lot of people pointed out that the throttle is on the wrong side. So because he's carrying his saber with his right hand, the throttle's on the right hand side of the bike. He wouldn't actually be able to control the throttle. But then it's like it doesn't matter too much because you could just kind of explain it away by saying in the 41st millennium they have left-handed throttle bikes instead. So you've always got to explain things away. Especially on YouTube, you need to be ready to explain away anything. So this is how I'm going to probably mount this. I don't mind that it pokes out, but it doesn't make much sense for how it's actually attached to the model. So we're going to chain that to it. We've got some chain here, so I'm going to slightly bend this a little bit, just so it wraps a little bit more around the shoulder pad. It doesn't stick out quite as much. We'll be seeing the finished model and other stream conversions painted on the channel eventually. Yeah, so I think someone mentioned earlier if I was going to do some smaller versions of, like, some more focused versions of these tutorials. And yeah, I think I probably will do, because I understand that whilst it's good to watch these and have a bit of interaction and see the process, it isn't as clear and concise. And if you're sticking through an hour's worth of stream to get basically 5 minutes worth of what could be distilled down into 5 minutes worth of conversion, then obviously I can see how that's a bit need a little bit more glue there, how it would be better to have. And so yeah, I think if I do these guys as a more dedicated conversion, then I'll probably feature these ones painted, or the conversions that I do in those videos later on. So I'm just going to let that dry for a bit, because I want to just let it sit in place before I start messing around with it. So we're going to use this, and you see how it's kind of bent a little bit, and that's fine. It should wrap around the shoulder pad a little bit better. We can go a little bit further with that one, so just leave that to one side. Is it just me, or is the sound ahead? Yeah, I wonder if there's any latency. I'm noticing a little bit of a slight delay on my camera, so let's see if I wonder if my camera's got a delay on it. Shouldn't do, unless it's changed its settings. That's odd. Yeah, I'm not sure why there would be a delay. It's a bit odd, that is. Very strange. I'll check that out for the next stream. Apologies if that's very annoying, but I can't see any obvious settings which is causing the problems at the moment. Okay. If the trophy ends up not quite fitting, you could put it in the backpack. Yes, you could, but I actually have some ideas to go on the backpack. So we're gonna try and work this onto the shoulder pad. Okay, so what have we got here? I think that can go ahead now. Again, I'm not going to worry too much about this not fitting perfectly again. Oh, why is this not glued on properly? That's odd. I think sometimes with these arms, the actual contact points are in really odd locations, so you need to make sure you get the glue there, otherwise the shoulder pad just doesn't sit properly. Oh man, making a mess of this. See, this is the thing that you see in these live streams compared to normal. You don't see the mistakes that I end up making. I think it's this here. It's this strap. Let's trim that down. Let's see if we can trim it down without ripping the whole arm off. There we go. That's better. I can immediately feel that that's sitting a lot better than it did before. Right, let's bring the glue back. There we go. Let's attach this here. Got any conversion ideas brewing for the Indomitus box? Well, as I said earlier, there is currently in a box there is a Ravenwing conversion sprue. There is also some components from Deathwing Terminators. There is a White Scars conversion kit, and there is a Blood Angels Death Company kit, all waiting for that Indomitus box. So yeah, safely to say there will be some conversions, and it's probably going to be about 5 or 6. Oh no, the bandoliers fell off. Yeah, there's going to be a few conversions, so yeah. The answer to that is yes. I really like the models that have come into that set. I think it's great to see that in that one set we're basically getting a whole bunch of miniatures which can be used to represent oh man, this is going disastrously. That can be used to represent a bunch of the kind of iconic models from each of the main chapters. So you've got the bikes, which are great for White Scars and Ravenwing. Is it Ravenwing? Yeah, it is Ravenwing. You've got the Assault Intercessors, which are basically great for Blood Angels, and you've got things like I've also got some Space Wolf components as well. So yeah, there's lots of conversion ideas floating around, and there will be lots of Space Marine conversions coming up around that release of the box set. So if you're not into Space Marine conversions, I do apologise, but I'm very excited to be doing those. Okay, so I'm just going to leave this to one side because I think at the moment things need to just be dried a second. So I'm going to have a look at the comments and answer some questions. So get them in now if you want to. Do you have real model chains? Yes, they are there. I'll be using these in a second. Have you considered doing Loyalist Lunar Wolves conversions? Yeah, I have considered doing some. I mentioned in the last stream I'll be doing some like Dornian Heresy kind of thing. So yeah, there will be some like Loyalist versions of Space Marine chapters, maybe of the Chaos Space Marine chapters. You should totally do something with the Slaves of Darkness box. I do actually have the Sort Collecting one, and the models are really nice in there, but I haven't thought of anything that would be good to do. The models themselves are actually really good. I think you could probably use them as non-Chaos models quite easily. But yeah, it'd be good to do that. What are you going to use for the head for this model? Now, the head that I actually had to hand was just a regular Primaris head, and I was going to do some damage to it, a little bit like I did the damage to the arm, but I'm not 100% sure to go ahead with this one now. I'm kind of having a rethink. I would like to do a trying to think what I have to hand. Not an awful lot. No, I think I'll stick with this one. I was going to use a bear head, but I think I wanted to do that damage on here. So let's whilst we wait for that to do, let's just start work on this. So let's just start with the drilling first. Have you looked into the Wolfen kit for your Black Dragon conversion? Now, a while ago, I was actually going to do the Wolfen, and I had some of the Wolfen, like the Frost Claws, that I was going to use as the bone protrusions, because I think they have that kind of almost like carved bone texture, a little bit like Wolverine's bone claws in the films. They have that kind of almost natural bone growth rather than being a straight, just kind of blade like a Tyranid claw would be. So I was probably going to use those. So yeah, I have looked at the Wolfen kit in that respect anyway. Any tips for doing facial scars? I haven't got any. I haven't really tried it. It's very difficult because you're such a fine model. You could probably do some maybe some green stuff in there to like cut some stuff out and then do some green stuff over the top. That might work, but without having done any in the past, I wouldn't want to say. But it probably would be a little bit trickier because you want to make sure that you've got something that looks realistic, doesn't look too added on and fake. Whereas with armor and things like that, you can kind of go a little bit crazy. You can see how I'm using lots of like shallow cuts here just to add some texture to the armor. And that softening down with the glue is really helping to do that. And sometimes with this kind of thing, with battle damage, if you saw my live stream on Wednesday, you'll know that you can actually achieve a lot of battle damage effects with just paint, so you don't need to go over the top here. The same with probably facial scarring as well. You can probably do a lot with just painting effects rather than having to physically do cuts and damage and things like that. So yeah, that was kind of where I was going to go with it with the helmet, just adding in some battle damage and some scratches, and it looks like it's been scarred on the face, and he's been hit with some acid as well. And I would fully imagine that these kind of war veterans, these Tyranid Hunters, would keep the damage as long as it didn't really affect the capability of the armor. I think they would wear it as kind of like a sign of, like a rite of passage, the fact that they've kind of gotten up close and personal with a Tyranid and managed to survive. I think it's quite a cool, a little bit of a story. Like I mentioned earlier, it's nice to have stories for your models, and it really helps to drive a conversion. You can see how things would piece together and what makes sense and what doesn't. So yeah, I think this should be dry enough now. So we have this, and we need to chain it on to the model. Now this chain that I'm using here is a very fine chain. I've actually really struggled to get a hold of something as fine as this since I bought this years ago. Now the links on it are I think they're 1mm by 1.5mm, so 1mm that way, 1.5mm that way. And this is a really nice fine chain that we can use across here. So let's use the super glue for this, because obviously we're using metal chain and we need to use super glue. So I'm going to use it as like a cross, like a little bit like the Death Company symbol. So I'm just going to apply a little bit of super glue just down here. Oh man, that's a little bit too much. That's a bort. Let's move that around a second. There we go. And then I'm going to drop one end of the chain into the super glue and just lay that across where I want it to go. Oh man, I've got a little bit. This is a very finicky job to do on camera. It's not too bad if I've done a tutorial for it, so you kind of see the highlights, the attempt that I made that actually worked, but doing this live is very difficult. I've got a little bit of glue on there, that's why it's not. Let's try the other end. Okay, that's better. So I'm going to leave that to place just for a little bit, just to allow it to dry. Apply a small amount just there as well. So the super glue obviously dries a lot quicker than normal glue does, so you can kind of run ahead with this one a lot quicker than normal. So I'm going to make a cut about here, and that should give me enough chain just to hook it underneath the shoulder pad. Okay. Oh, these clippers are again a little bit old now. They don't. There we go. They don't cut through like they used to. And I'm going to apply a little bit of super glue underneath there, and then pull that chain down and just pull that chain into the bottom like so. So that's the first section. We need another one repeating from the other way. So let's apply just a dot here. I'm going to apply it here mainly because the power pack covers up these areas, so if you make a mistake then it's not too bad. You can kind of get away with it. Okay. This isn't working again. Oh man. I hate working with super glue, it just gets everywhere. So I do apologise if I'm not responding to the chats much today. Oh, no, I'm using the wrong end again. Quite a lot more chat activity, so I do apologise if I'm missing anything. This is like the hardest I've ever had to work with this chain. It's just not working at all today. Let's just trim that out. I think it's covered in super glue too much, so the Codex does not support the Tyranid veterans. Yeah, I think that the trouble is with a lot of these kind of ideas, there isn't like a Codex approved version of them, so you often just end up having to use them as regular intercessors and just have them so they just appear better than the normal miniatures, just so you don't always have to have rule justification for things. It's just cool to have. How are we going to get us across now? What's the best way? I think that's probably going to be the best way to do that. Yeah, I think sometimes you just want to have a model that looks cool and kind of run with that. There, I think the chain works well there, so let's just trim that chain down. There we have it. There we go. Gonna get a little bit of super glue in there without getting it everywhere. Yes, just, ah man, it's a little bit too much. Let's just push that away. There you go. Push that into the gaps. Forget it exists. Okay, so we've got something holding that piece of kind of carapace to the shoulder pad. I think if you just glue something onto the carapace, it doesn't always look right. You need to have a way of justifying how it's been attached, which is why I like using this chain. I say it's very easy to use, but it's easier to use than like green stuff, things like that. And for most conversions that I've used them for, it's usually fairly straightforward. It can be a little bit tricky, and that's mainly because you end up using super glue. Now this is still a little bit, there's a little bit of movement in there, so I'm going to apply a little bit of super glue just to the chain, and that's going to keep that nice and stable. Because at least the worst thing that you want to happen is for it to be moving around when you're actually painting it, because it will scrape away the paint and it'll just won't look right at all. There we go. So what time are we on? Oh man, we're actually quite close to the end of the stream. I'll tell you, I'll keep it going a little bit longer than normal this evening, just so I can finish this off. So that head is already done, that helmet is, and we can pop the head straight in. You can see we have the damage, and I've kept that damage across the model there. Right, so let's get the shoulder pad on here, just so we can start working with that next. And we can see what kind of space we've got left. Oh man, don't tell me I've... oh no. This is why, this is exactly why I always try to say earlier, assemble the main parts of the model before you start adding extra bits onto it. It's just about have enough room there for that piece of carapace to, if I bend it around a little bit, can I do that without ripping off the whole arm? No. Oh, my fingers are stuck now. Oh man, this is disaster. How are we going to do this? Let's shave down the piece of the carapace. It really amazes me that sometimes glue will dry really quickly and other times it'll just take a little bit longer and you touch it and it then decides to move. Okay, so hopefully that was enough of a modification that we can just pop this back on. Which Traitor Legion and Primarch is your favourite and why? To be honest, I don't have... I mean, I'd say the Traitor Legions is probably Death Guard, because I do want to make a Death Guard army. I really like the models for them. I really like the idea that they have... I just really like the whole kind of Nurgle approach to them. They're really fun to paint, they're really fun to model. And I think Mortarian's a pretty cool looking model as well. I don't know enough about the whole Horus Heresy lore and the background to kind of come up with a background answer to you. But yeah, just purely based on the miniatures, definitely the Death Guard. So, let's just add on a few pouches around the back here just to pad out these areas a bit. We want to make sure that this guy looks... Nothing wants to glue today. There we go. So when in doubt with veterans, just glue more pouches to them and it'll look fine. Okay. So I think the model itself is actually coming together nicely now. But there are a few... You can pretty much leave it as it is here. You don't need to really add much extra to it, but... I mean, we have to add some components from the Citadel Skull set, which obviously means dead animal bits. So that Citadel Skull set is really good because it comes with these... Oh man, I've just dropped it. It comes with these Gene Stealer heads, and these are really nice for adding on as little extra trophies. Now, I'm not actually going to chain this on. I'm just going to add this to the top of the backpack like that. Of the power pack, not the backpack. And this can just get glued straight on. And I know I said you always need to have a way of the model appearing that it's been mounted on, but to be honest, it's not too unlikely that there will be a small spike or something welded onto the back there that this is attached to. And it basically just adds a little bit more kind of Tyranid flair to the model. You could use pretty much anything from any kind of Tyranid kit. You could use claws, you could use bits from the gaunts. The only thing I say wouldn't work quite as well are the more organic looking parts, so like the fleshy arms, things like that. Over time those things would probably rot away, so you want things like the carapace, skulls, things like that. And I think that is our Primaris Tyranid Hunter for the Ultramarines completed. I think that's where we're going to be leaving this conversion for this evening. Oh, he's a veteran, has some seals. Yeah, probably should do. Do I have some handy? Yes, let's add some of these. I do have some handy. Let's just add a couple of them. When I was younger, I had a real thing about hoarding the best components in a kit. So, to be honest, I still actually have it. What I'll do is I'll use the most generic components when I'm assembling the models, because I want to keep the best looking parts for conversions and things like that. And I often end up having loads of really good parts from a kit, and just having my actual models is just regular, boring looking. And purity seals are one of those components I always ended up hoarding, so I ended up with loads and loads of purity seals and hardly any of them on my actual models. because I always thought there'd be a better model that could do with them in the future. So let's pop one on. Let's pop one here, just on the shoulder pad there. We can have that kind of dangling down. Let's go for the tweezers. Oh man, a little bit more glue actually. I don't think I applied quite enough there. There we go. And let's add one. Let's add one to, I guess this. I suppose we could add it as a piece to a piece of that, and that's almost like a. It's been blessed, I suppose. It's been purified, so it's okay to wear a piece of like a dead alien on your armor because it's been purified. I guess that makes sense. There we go. It makes as much sense as Space Marines do in general, so that's fine. There we go. So I think that's it. I think we've managed to hit the 10 o'clock time. At least it has for me, because there's a bit of a delay. So I do apologise about the audio there. I am noticing it actually on myself. I'm watching the stream here, and it is very much more delayed than normal. So I do apologise for that. I'll try and sort it out for the next one. I don't think there's anything that I've got here. Let's just double check. No, there really isn't anything in here that should be adding that delay. But yeah, so I do apologise, guys. I will sort that out for the next stream, which will be Wednesday. Not sure what I'm going to be doing yet. Possibly some Astra Militarum stuff. I haven't done any for a while, so we can probably do some stuff like that. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this conversion. I actually quite liked how the model looked out. Sometimes when I start these conversions, I have no idea how the finished models are going to look, but I actually quite like the idea of it. One of the things I was going to add on to this guy was this, but I don't think that works. I don't think it gives him an Ultramarine vibe, but I don't know. I don't know if it fits the whole kind of beefy look that we've actually created in the end. So if you wanted to actually paint this guy, then you could probably use the same techniques that I used on my stream on Wednesday for the blue armor, and then obviously the battle damage on the top of that. That would work quite well. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this. Leave me some suggestions for conversions you'd like to see me on the live streams, or whether or not you just prefer to have it as a main kind of conversion video, normal conversion video. There will still always be normal conversion videos. Don't worry, these live streams are just a way of covering ideas a little bit more quickly and a little bit more kind of, it helps me clear the backlog as well. And as always, if you are already a supporter of my channel, either you're a member, you are support me on Patreon, or you just click those links, those affiliate links for Amazon and Firestone Games in my description. Big thank you to everyone who does that. It means I can go ahead and buy random kits to actually start doing these conversions with. And you heard all those kits that I've bought already for the Indomitus box. There will be lots of stuff coming, and all those conversions are made possible by your support, so huge thank you. There is a Discord server. The link for that is in the description below, and there's lots of really great guys on there, great folks. And if you have any questions, if you want to share your work, or you just want to hang out with some really interesting folks, then that's definitely a great place. So I think that's it, and I never really know how to end these streams, so I'm just going to say thanks for watching and goodbye.